Hello and welcome. I'm Rashan Gidwani and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines for this hour. The United States prepares to send thousands of additional soldiers to the Middle East region. U.S. President Donald Trump claims diplomatic progress while offering a plan to end the war. Tehran tells the UN that non-hostile vessels may transit the Strait of Hormuz. The German president labels the Middle Eastern conflict a mistake in a rare public criticism. Surging fuel prices and the ongoing West Asia war drive U.S. President Donald Trump's popularity to a record low. A massive daytime aerial attack by Russia causes multiple casualties in Ukraine. The Israeli defense minister announces plans for the military to seize Lebanese land. The Chinese foreign minister calls for an immediate diplomatic resolution during talks with Tehran. And here are the top stories for this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that negotiations with Iran to end the Middle East war are currently underway. He stated that top U.S. officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, are involved in the talks. Trump indicated that both sides are working toward a potential deal, with U.S. representatives actively engaged in the discussions. The development comes as international efforts intensify to bring an end to the escalating conflict in the region. U.S. leadership says the process is ongoing and focused on finding a diplomatic resolution to the crisis. Let's listen in to what Trump has said.
Yeah, well, we're in negotiations, as it turned out, and now you've seen what I said yesterday was exactly correct. We're in negotiations right now. They're doing it along with Marco, JD. We have a number of people doing it, and the other side, I can tell you, they'd like to make a deal.
And now joining us live to tell us more is Daniel Boardman, Canadian journalist, joining us live from Toronto. Sir, essentially there are more troops that are heading towards the Persian Gulf. But of course, we just heard from Trump himself that negotiations are ongoing. What do you make of this news?
I make of the news that negotiations have been ongoing between Trump and the Islamic Republic a couple times now, which have precipitated, an attack on Iran. So I think the more important thing is what Trump does than says. So who are they negotiating within the regime? We think the Speaker of the Parliament is negotiating with them. Does he speak for the entire regime right now? What about like their whole Mosaic Command thing? And again, the terms that Trump is offering the regime, the 15-point plan, seem very generous, honestly. And if you weren't sort of an ideological radical, you would see these as very reasonable conditions. But the Islamic Republic of Iran is sort of putting out messaging that they want full surrender of the United States, which is just not going to happen. So this seems like a bit of theater to buy time to get troops in station, and also constantly calm down. I think global oil markets might be a side strategy of Trump. It sometimes makes sense if you look at Trump's statements by what is he saying now, and does this serve to lower the price of oil on the global market at the time? And that might be why he's saying it at that particular point, while still fighting the war to the end. Listen, you can't end the war. Right? The war's not going to end this week. They're not going to talk on Friday and end the war. It's just not going to happen. The position Iran is in, with the missile cities and a lot of their equipment locked underground in these missile cities, they can't use them right now, which is good in the middle of a war. But within 48 hours, they could have all the entrances cleared, and then have access to all these missiles, and then again, any pause, legitimate pause for 48, 72 hours would allow them to sort of build themselves back up to the strength they were at pretty much day 2 of the war, which would negate the entire point of going to war, which was to reduce the ballistic missile threat and all this. And of course, if they have any capability to enrich uranium, they would enrich immediately when they could, or wait out a Trump administration, hope for a Democrat administration or an administration they perceive as softer on them, and then go for full enrichment and get a nuclear weapon at this point. And again, if they stop now, they have complete leverage over the strait. So I think the Americans have to take the strait. If there's going to be any sort of conclusion to this war with the regime coming under a Trump administration, they'd have to either take Cargo Island or the strait or some combination of that, show American dominance in the region to take away any potential leverage the regime has, to create a puppet government if that's what you want. But as long as the regime has leverage, which is the Strait of Hormuz and the ability to sort of threaten to close it, this isn't going to come to an end from their point, and it's not going to come to an end from the American point of view. And it's not, and never mind, the Gulf states don't want it to end right now. So no participant really wants this conflict to end right now. Although it would go great for the Islamic Republic of Iran if they were to agree to this 15-point plan that Donald Trump has gifted them, which even has some conditional aspects on it. That would serve them, but they are broken and they are fanatical and resolved to fight to the death in some respects. So, yeah, the show will go on.
Actions speak louder than words, but for both sides, right? Essentially, negotiations are ongoing with the U.S. and Iran, but of course, Israel is just as much as involved in the war. Just recently, today, there are reports of Iran essentially striking Israel still, whilst negotiations are supposedly ongoing. What would you make of the statement if I said that the U.S. should entirely back out? Would you agree or disagree, and why or why not?
I mean, back out of the conflict? The U.S. should back out?
Yes.
I mean, no, I don't think the U.S. should back out right now. And, I mean, the Israelis can't really back down. The U.S. can't back down. They'd have to clear this because you can't have a global thermonuclear war. And you can't have a regime which still has this. I mean, they've almost accomplished a lot of their goals. And again, I think the Americans and the Israeli army still say they have 3 weeks left of goals and targets that need to be hit. So that needs to go through, because if the Americans back out now, if they fully withdraw now, then the Islamic Republic has a full veto over global trade, vis-a-vis the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. would lose face to the Saudis and the Gulf states, which they've just gained a closer alliance with, who are getting closer because the shift of power in the Gulf away from Iran, away from China, and towards the United States is happening at full right now. If the United States were to sort of pull out and give this all up, it would all shift back into a Chinese sphere of influence, and then all of this would be for naught. So I don't see the Americans in a position to back down. I don't see the Israelis in a position to back down. I don't see the Iranians backing down, although they probably should surrender and negotiate a deal that just gives up their nuclear weapons, but they are dead set on their God-given right to have nuclear weapons and fire them at the entire world. So, yeah, the Israelis don't want to have a nuclear weapon fired at them, and the Americans realize that they don't want that either. So, here we are.
Mr. Boardman, please stay with us. We'll be right back with you. Moving on, President Donald Trump said Tuesday that Iran gave him a very big present linked to the Strait of Hormuz. He described it as oil and gas related, saying it arrived after Tehran took action the previous day. Trump said the gift boosted his confidence that he was speaking to the right people in Tehran to end the war. The announcement came after he postponed threatened strikes on Iranian power plants amid ongoing negotiations. Tehran denies direct talks, but the conflict has now entered its 4th week, disrupting global oil supplies. Listen in.
He did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. It was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize, and they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it. So that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people.
Is that nuclear related?
No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did. But what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right. But we're dealing with a group of people that I think turn out, and the present, the gift they made to us was very significant, and they said they were going to do it, and it happened, and they're the only ones that could have done it. Jennifer?
Was it related to the Strait of Hormuz and the flow of?
Yeah, it was related to the flow and to the strait. Yeah, it was.
Are you negotiating on who's going to control the strait from now on?
No, we'll have control of anything we want.
And now joining us live to tell us more is Daniel Boardman, Canadian journalist, joining us live from Toronto. Sir, we have to dive right into this. What do you think this big present could be? We obviously have clues. It's oil and gas related. Could it be in the form of some sort of a discount, maybe, or essentially, that's my question. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a sort of a classic Trumpism, and he's not going to tell us. I mean, my guess is they let some tankers through the strait to ease global oil pressure is maybe, and that is a sign to Trump that the people he's dealing with have some operational control over troops on the ground in the strait, which means he can effectively negotiate with them, and that's the message he's trying to convey. Or someone gifted him like a bottle of cognac or whiskey, and he's making a big deal of it to undermine internal confidence among the IRGC itself of, who's giving the gifts to the great Satan right now? So he might be playing that, or it could be, again, it could be a variety of action to bluff, to talk. But again, I guess we're just not going to know until Trump decides to tell us what the present he got was. But my guess, like if I have to guess, an oil and gas related present in the Strait of Hormuz, they let like, I don't know, 5-10 tankers through. I don't know the exact number that I'm making up, but that would be my
right.
That's what I think, but I have no idea.
Yeah, it could be anything, right? What do you make of Trump essentially blaming Pete Hegseth here? There's a few actors that have been discussed, more that I've become familiar with, especially in the last 4 weeks. Steve Witkoff, and essentially we discussed, or rather in the newsroom, we discussed that Pete Hegseth's face wasn't exactly too enthusiastic when Trump blamed him for essentially invading Iran or entering Iran and launching those surprise attacks. There are a few intentions there to essentially wipe out the supreme leader, of course, to remove nuclear capabilities. What do you make of this confusion in the White House and how it's going to play out in years to come, whether or not there needs to be a more cohesive government in the U.S. that can lead it towards what needs to be done to maybe lower the deficit? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where the line between brilliance and madness is pretty much success or not, and that's the Trump. I don't think the lessons, or a lot of the lessons of a Trump administration, can be taken at 100% transferable to anyone who isn't of the proclivities of Donald Trump. So you have this great sort of strategic ambiguity where he can always say things and blame things and take 9 different positions. So no one really knows what Trump's saying because, the war's won. We're going to win it. It's still going on. We're going to be there for a month. But again, all the things, is it Hegseth's fault? Is it not? Is he playing against them? We don't know. And is this productive? In a war where you're trying to confuse your enemy, what if there actually is a lot of internal cohesion between Trump, Hegseth, Rubio, and there is this tight group of boys, right, on a group chat, having a great time, liberating Iran. And history goes on to show that they were these great military minds of, albeit flawed men, and they played some deception to the camera. And it was actually really smart that Donald Trump didn't reveal his military strategy to the world, because if he told the press, then the Iranians are also watching, and then they could hear his strategy and counter it. So maybe that is the sort of 5D chess going on. And maybe the sort of personality traits of Donald Trump lead to sort of narcissistic belligerence, which cause actual chaos. And this is hampering what could be good foreign policy, or maybe great foreign policy. Absolutely amazing foreign policy is made into maybe something good or less so because of all the infighting. Will we know? We don't know. And is this transferable to anyone else who isn't Donald Trump? I don't think so. I think when people try and like emulate Trump as not Trump, it comes off as very phony. We've seen those characters not be able to really grab hold in Western politics. So yeah, to me, it's if this works, if Iran is free and not a disaster, and there's a change of government and it's safer in 3 months from now, we're saying, wow, what a great job. Then he's a brilliant man, a great commander with excellent strategy. And if this is a quagmire, then he's a fool. So history will, and time will be the judge of Donald Trump.
Mr.
And
Boardman,
his war.
thank you so much for joining us. We'll speak soon. Much appreciated. Moving on, Iran has stated that the United States must lift all sanctions as part of any ceasefire agreement. Tehran argues that the removal of economic restrictions is essential to ensure peace and stability in the region. The announcement comes amid ongoing Middle East conflicts, with diplomatic efforts underway to bring the parties to the negotiating table. Experts warn that sanctions relief remains a contentious issue and could determine whether a lasting ceasefire is achievable. Iran's demand for the lifting of all U.S. sanctions highlights the deep economic and political divides at play. Diplomats warn that without compromise on both sides, a lasting ceasefire may remain out of reach. And now joining us live to tell us more is retired Colonel Sanjit Sirohi, international relations and defense expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Sir, essentially Iran wants some sort of wartime reparations as well. In addition to these sanctions, what number would that be? Do you have any gauge on how to essentially put a price on schools that have been bombed, casualties, and so on and so forth? The entire Middle Eastern reputation essentially falling to bits? Please tell me more.
Thank you, Roshan, and good morning. Now, if you see the demands which have been put up by both the sides, that is by the Iranians and by the Americans, I don't think there is any point which the both parties can agree to it. Now, Mohsen Rezai, who is the military advisor to the Ayatollah Mustab, now he has categorically mentioned that before any talks take place or before any ceasefire take place, there are two basic demands. First is that the economic sanction must be lifted, and secondly, the compensation for damages which have been caused in Iran. So now, as far as the figure is concerned, I don't know how they will calculate the figure of the damages which have been, which the buildings or the infrastructure has been destroyed. That is for the Iranians to put up. But I don't think sanctions may be lifted partially. But as far as the repatriation is concerned for the damages caused by the Americans and the Israelis, there is no question that the Americans or the Israelis are going to pay for that. So that demand is not going to be accepted in any case. So for the time being, what we are seeing is that the demands from both sides, the Americans have put in 15-point demand and the Iranians have put 6-point demand. And I think except for 1 or 2 or maybe 3 or 4, the other demands will not be politically, economically and strategically acceptable to both the countries. Roger.
Please stay with us, sir. We'll be right back with you. Now we have some breaking news coming in. Iran's military has dismissed President Trump's claim of negotiations with Tehran. Lieutenant Colonel Ibrahim Zolfagari, spokesperson for Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters, questioned if the U.S. is negotiating with itself. He warned there will be no return to previous oil prices or regional order until Iran's demands are met. Zolfagari said Iran will never reconcile with the United States, calling its intentions dirty from day one. The statement reinforces Tehran's hardline stance amid escalating tensions in the region. Joining us live now to tell us more is retired Colonel Sanjit Sirohi, international relations and defense expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Sir, essentially this reiterates rather what Iran has been standing on as far as their principles are concerned for the last 4 weeks and even from last year with the 12-day war. But on the flip side, we also have Pete Hegseth, who was also, dead set on wiping out nuclear capabilities in Iran. This essentially is a pattern and a replayed story where both of these sides are butting heads. What more can you tell me about where we'll find, a quote-unquote winner in this, or how will the world reach a diplomatic stance here? It might not be through monetary means, but what else can be negotiated? Please tell me more.
Move toward the Middle East, and they have got another 3,000 to 4,000 Marines, which are also moving toward Middle East. So that is the one point going on. And secondly, in spite of the talks, what Mr. Donald Trump is talking about, as far as Iran is concerned, they said they have made it very clear a number of times that they are not in negotiations with anybody, and they are questioning that who is talking with whom. So I think this is all a psychological warfare played by Mr. Donald Trump, because Donald Trump himself and his administration is now, I think they are totally confused, and they have started blaming each other. Donald Trump is blaming Pete Hegseth by saying that you are the one who said let us do it. So it is the blame game which has started, because Donald Trump has got a simple principle: credit is mine and blame is yours. So he's playing on that. So I don't think in near future we can see any negotiation taking place. Maybe, and as far as Israel is concerned, they are not very keen for any negotiation or any ceasefire to take place. They want to carry forward this war for another 3 to 4 weeks. So the problem is not with Iranians. They are ready to carry on. It is not with Israel. The problem is with Mr. Donald Trump. He does not have any exit strategy to come out of this, whatever is going on, and he doesn't have any reason to say that, okay, we have won the war and we are coming out of it. So he's trying to find that reason, but he's not able to do so. Roshan.
Please stay with us, sir. We'll be right back with you. Next up, the United States is the world's largest producer of natural gas, but it does not have ships to transport liquefied natural gas domestically. This means LNG is exported to over 30 countries using foreign carriers, while some U.S. regions still struggle to receive gas locally. The issue stems from the Jones Act, a century-old law that requires cargo between U.S. ports to be on American-built ships. Building these specialized LNG carriers in the United States is far more expensive than building them abroad, making domestic transportation challenging. As a result, regions like New England have to import costlier gas from overseas during the winter, even though supplies exist just a few states away. Next up, Israeli military authorities have warned residents in the southern suburbs of Beirut to evacuate ahead of planned strikes. Israeli forces have carried out bombings in the area, targeting what they say are military positions. There are currently no confirmed reports of casualties, but local residents report damage to infrastructure and buildings. The escalation raises concerns over regional stability, with neighboring countries and international actors calling for restraint amid rising tensions. Experts say the strikes in Beirut heighten fears of a broader regional conflict, with world powers urging restraint and urgent negotiations to prevent further escalation. And now joining us live to tell us more is retired Colonel Sanjit Sirohi, international relations and defense expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Sir, as far as this evacuation is concerned, what advice would you have, if any, to the people in Lebanon as far as pathways out of that region and essentially into the Middle East? Where can they go? I know that a lot of airspaces are closed. What routes can they take? Do you believe that Israel will essentially let those citizens in? We know that Lebanon is quite in the line of fire. I've seen videos of apartment buildings essentially being destroyed. What are your thoughts, sir?
Look, Roshan, that once this war started by the Americans and Israelis on Iran, that is the time, because otherwise this Lebanon was quite dormant for last 1 year, we see, after the ceasefire which took place in October. Till after that, there was not major activity going on except for a few airstrikes for the Israelis. But once this war started with Iran, that is the time the Hezbollah, they again started carrying out rocket attack on the northern Israel settlements. And as a result of that, there were a lot of casualties. So in retaliation, the Israelis, they started targeting the southern Lebanon, from where all these strikes were coming on. Now, what Israelis have decided is that they are going to create a buffer zone south of Litani River. Now, if you see that Litani River has got number of bridges, out of those 5 bridges have already been destroyed, and the reason for that is that the Israeli forces, they feel that a lot of ammunition and the terrorists or the Hezbollah people, they come this side of Litani River, carry out the attack, and then they go back. So what they have done is they have destroyed the bridges except for 1 or 2 bridges which they have kept for themselves and which have been properly guarded. So what the Israelis are trying to do is they are trying to make a buffer zone south of Litani River, so that the rockets which are being fired from south of Litani
Yes,
River...
sir. I'm so sorry. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Colonel, sir, for joining us. We'll speak soon. Next up, Colombian President Gustavo Petro has observed a minute of silence for the 69 people who died when a Colombian military plane crashed soon after takeoff. The tribute was held during a cabinet meeting where Petro lamented the loss of life and describing the fatalities as regrettable. Petro has said that what drug trafficking cannot do to us, we end up doing through internal responsibilities. Let's listen in.
Es indudablemente lamentable para las familias. Soldados muertos van 69, último dato. No sé. Narcotráfico terminamos haciéndolo por responsabilidades internas.
That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Rashan Gidwani and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines for this hour. Iran sends waves of missiles into Israeli territory. Tehran dismisses recent reports of peace negotiations as fake news. Israel Defense Minister says the military prepares to occupy a buffer zone to prevent Hezbollah attacks against northern communities.